Well, it's good, everybody. Hope you are having a wonderful week so far. Before we start the podcast, I'd love it if you could all hit subscribe, give us a review at the end of it. If you are new to this podcast, welcome. Thank you so much for coming in and listening. Means the world. There's a cool little community here. And get involved. Reach out to people, share the podcast, hit questions in the comments, hit me up on the DMs. Always here to kind of give back to you guys. This time on the podcast, I've got the one and only Elijah. Elijah has had a successful career in multi aspects of electronic music, grime. He had a radio show on Rinse, has been a label owner, been an artist manager, and is now on his, I guess, like social media commentary, community creator tip. I don't really know fully how to explain what he does. However, I came across his social media, which is, I'm sure a lot of you have, but it's very much thought-provoking pieces of just him writing down his thoughts and then sharing them in yellow squares on Instagram. And the industry has kind of gotten behind his posts and pushing them and starts a lot of conversations. And I love anything that starts conversations. As you all are aware, I do this podcast, so we kind of went over a lot of topics in this podcast, from what it takes to be artist management agents, therapy, how to be a creative, how to run a business. It's really interesting conversation, and this is the first time I spoke with Elijah. An absolute lovely dude. So yeah, without further ado, Elijah, what's cooking, man? How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, bro?
Yeah, pretty good. I feel pretty stressed today for some reason. Like it's
And you want to speak to me?
Yeah, I don't know why, but like it's bank holiday weekend, and after bank holiday weekend, it's just always that like catch up of like, because I do a lot of stuff in the UK. In the US, it's like everyone's still working on a Monday, and the whole of the UK is not working. So it's all good, man. It's all good. What about you? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, like I kind of like split my days. Like I just do creative stuff like in the evenings, and then like more admin heavy stuff in the mornings. Just get the boring stuff out of the way, fun stuff in the evening. So
Nice.
this is like a little break in my rhythm. Yeah,
Sorry to break it up, but thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it, man.
it's all good.
I have been following you for, I'd probably say, a good year and a half now. And I've only followed you on social media. I came across you, I can't remember when it was and what it was. It was definitely one of your yellow tiles, which kind of really jumped out at me at the time. I kind of would love I know you're not just that Instagram dude, if you know what I mean. I know you do. There's a lot more aspects to your life and your career. So before we get into any of this, I'd love for you to kind of explain to the people listening of like exactly what roles you lead in your career and in life.
In life. Okay, I guess my journey, like I'm like from East London. I kind of grew up on like pirate radio here. I joined Rinse in 2008 playing grime as a DJ. Was on there for about 6 years and started my own label with my friend Skilliam, and then linked up with other producers and other interesting artists in the grime scene. So kind of just like did like loads of nights and yeah, put out records. I did that kind of for like 10 years in varying roles. So DJing, promoting, managing projects and managing artist careers. And then I guess like in 2020 when things just stopped, I got to kind of take a bit of stock of all the kind of projects I worked on, what to do next. And I was just at just a different point in life as well, like 10 years later. And then it was like, okay, after having about a 9-month social media break, I thought, okay, well, how am I going to be useful here? What's the point even using this thing?
Yeah.
So I started just writing about things I'd learned or ideas I had for the future, and just I've worked a lot with young people as well. So maybe the yellow squares and that stuff is like an outcome of a lot of conversations and thinking about like non-typical answers to a lot of the questions we were asking.
Well, I think it's really interesting because I think these are the questions that we all ask ourselves. Yet we don't really talk about them in public, or even amongst ourselves as artists. I think sometimes these conversations, what you're bringing up, is something that we should not should. There's no shoulds or shouldn't, but what could be discussed in a greater conversation. But for some reason in this music industry, it's not. What do you think that reason is for?
I mean, that's not just a music thing. If you met like five friends on a weekend for a drink and then all spoke about how life was, you just say all right, and you know,
Yeah.
same old, and it's the same in music. And if we again linked up with a bunch of our peers, you're not going to necessarily go into intricate challenges that you're having, and so and there are bigger ones that we're all kind of facing, but then so many of them are like individual. It's like, okay, well, we want to have different lifestyles and different ways of approaching things. So you don't think I'm gonna farm out my way of doing something to other people. Once you work out something for yourself, you're like, cool, like I've solved it. If you get to solving it, but you don't think, oh, I'm gonna share that with others, or you're not sure how useful that would be for other people. So I don't know.
I guess in a in a question for yourself though, 10 years ago, if there was somebody doing what you're doing now 10 years ago, how helpful would you have found it?
I think there were people like on Twitter that were kind of starting labels at the same time. So that would have been like, so I started the label Butters in 2010. So around that time, there was like Night Slugs and Numbers and Hessel Audio had already going. Like I was on Rinse, so I was among a community of people that were kind of at different varying points at the same position. I was DIY, putting out records for a distributor, meeting new producers from all over the country and some further around the world, playing little gigs and that.
Yeah.
So maybe I was just speaking to those people and seeing them more regular. So those conversations would happen offline. So
Yeah.
without necessarily giving advice to each other, you are sharing resources and
Advice.
space in some way. I'm like with this kind of stuff. I'm not sure. Maybe because I was always with a group of people. Or I was in a DJ duo and had a crew and have like I didn't feel as isolated or needed that kind of thing. Whereas I'm meeting a lot more people now that come in just them by themselves, and then they're looking for all of to find community. Whereas I already had that at the start.
And I think that community is so key in life, not just this scene. I think community is key. But I think what I'm seeing more and more, and I'm not too sure if you are, but because of the likes of social media, because of the power of what the internet can do nowadays, and the internet can literally give somebody a career in a very short space of time that doesn't have the ability to actually even find a community where they belong. And I think that's kind of where we're coming up with like roadblocks where people just don't know. And that's absolutely fine for people who don't know, but I think it's where's the longer conversations, where's the education happening in all of this, and the ability to allow creatives to be part of a community.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, all of the not knowing bit is the fun bit for me because
100%.
I guess like how like the people that were the generation before, they just hadn't experienced what we were experiencing because the thing was so different. Like they were selling records in record shops. We were doing digital and internet things, and it's like there was like worlds apart. Like I met artists that were 5 years older than me that barely knew their way around a computer. It was fascinating. Like which is unthinkable now, but like it's like the generation gap was like now, like say like people our age might be like shook of TikTok, for example.
Yeah, totally.
That's like, but it was like that gap, but with like computers
or like completely,
or like the internet. Like I ain't putting my music on the internet. Like that's people. This was quite normal, and I remember like part of how I even got traction as a DJ was just doing things that the other DJs wouldn't do on the internet. So I would like put my radio shows on like a server and put like with a track list and all this kind of stuff. Whereas other DJs were just DJing on pirate, and then when it was done, there was no podcast or nothing. Whereas I was like, I'm going to make sure there's a recording so people can catch it and be very particular about caring about that part of it. So all of these generational differences, I don't know. like there's only so much they could have like held my hand anyway. And maybe to an extent with the work that we do today, the, you know, say like a 22-year-old coming out of uni, yeah, I'm trying to keep this as open as possible. So you obviously, first of all, I don't want to hold your hand, and
Of course.
and second, it's like, well, the world you're coming into is very, very different to even 2020. Never mind when I came in 2009.
It's changed so much since 2020. Like since from 2019 to 2020, the whole industry completely changed. And it's really interesting to see the adaptation of certain artists and and the non-adaptation of other artists, where it's literally like people have had careers and then people haven't had careers because just not willing to adapt. How important do you think as an artist to adapt, being able to adapt to your environment is key?
Um, for some things, I think not being willing to adapt forces you down another creative path. So like if you don't want to say like, I don't know, be a social media star, DJ type of person, then you might just do something else creatively and that be very fulfilling and more suitable for your lifestyle and your temperament. And obviously this happens in really harsh ways. It's usually taken away from people, and that's the
100%.
bit that causes the contention. But I don't think it's necessarily bad to like to move on from something, you know. And even coming out of 2020, I was like, oh, am I going to just like carry on DJing? It's just like, I don't know. Like it was so long before things opened up. I just already opened up other creative boxes that it became like less important to me, you know. So
Yeah.
there is a good forcing function of people not adapting and new ideas coming in and new people, new voices and new promoters and new clubs. This is good. I don't want, you know, people to just stay or even just stay like tweaking the thing just to stay like kind of relevant. I feel like
Yeah.
relevant is like not, it's not helpful to the whole music ecosystem, relevance, or like trying to stay, I don't know, man. I'm not a fan
It's
of that.
tough, isn't it? Because there's always that conversation, isn't it, of relevance? Because relevance, technically, in the way I look at relevance, is that you're popular, like people like you, and you're relevant to the general public, not necessarily just the industry. Because I guess like, but but hearing what you're saying with regards to like on a adaptation of like social media, like you and I have definitely got friends that have gone, I'm not doing social media, yet you then see their career completely fall off.
Yep.
And I think there's levels of like, yeah, you can do what you want, but there's also certain things in this career that you to have a career you have to do to a certain extent, right? And I think where do you draw that balance, and where do you draw that line of like, okay, there's certain things in my life for me to be successful in my career, whatever success is, but financially successful in a career success, where you need social media.
Yeah. I don't even think, you know, when people say they don't like it, I think it's like they don't like a certain aspect of it. It's like saying you don't like, I don't know, cars or a hammer or something. It's like, what are we talking about here? Do you not?
Yeah,
You can use it in a way that's functional for you. You might not get the most likes, you might not get the most impressions, or you're thinking about doing a way you've seen already done that you just don't like. But there's thousands of ways to approach this thing, and that's part of the yellow squares is like, well, all of the things people say to do to get engagement, I don't do, but I still get engagement because it's still, I'm doing something that's interesting to me that I can sustain for whatever amount of time, and like I don't have to, like there are compromises within a limit, but it, like I found a mechanism for myself, and I think all artists can find a mechanism or a platform that is right for their temperament. And when it's just like a complete disregarding of it, it's like, well, you're an artist, like approach this like an artist, a
be an
creative,
artist. Yeah,
yeah, create a creative solution, you
yeah,
know. And sometimes like maybe when we having these conversations more broadly, I'm like, okay, does the art stop at the DAW, you know? Like
yeah.
no, like we never did, you know. So why are we stopping it here at Instagram or here at TikTok or here at Twitter? Like take it all the way through, you know. And saying, well, I don't have ideas for that. It's like, all right, well,
No,
what are you
I
gonna
think
say? You know?
I totally agree. I think it's actually when people complain about social media, which I think a lot of people do, generally means is because they're just not willing to work out what it works for them.
Yeah.
And it feels like a cop off to say, oh, I don't like this or I don't like that, but they just haven't given it the time. Like none of us liked opening Logic for the first time because we were, or Ableton, because we were terrible at it. Until we got good at it, we didn't love it, if you know what I mean. But there was always that intrigueness of what if you know what I mean. And I think it's exactly the same in anything in life, is that we always start really, but we start something really bad. No one's the pro from the get go.
Yeah, like
But
how I've been trying to tell people to approach it is just as like a canvas. So when social media is a canvas, not an advertising board. So if you treat it like, if you just treat it like, okay, there's as a canvas, you don't expect every bit of your work to, I don't know, be sold for £1 million. So this is not a realistic expectation, and just like disarming the numbers and the likes and the followers and stuff. Like it'll cause a different kind of creative approach, and then also just might get you where you need to go faster than just completely disregarding it. But I don't know. Depends on people's outcomes, because sometimes when we talk about creating art, we're not talking about like, I don't know, having a space in the industry. But for this conversation, let's merge the two things. That's what we're talking about, right? So yeah, sometimes like a lot of the comments I get are, why don't we, like, I don't know, tear down capitalism? I'm like, I can't do this on Instagram. It's just,
yeah, I think we're talking about art, and I think I think from you being an artist, a manager, a business person in this realm, you've kind of had experience on all aspects of it. But it's that classic conversation of when art meets business. And it's something that we deal with every single day when it's our full-time job, or even when it's our part-time job, or even when we're trying for it to be a job for us, when we're trying to convert that art. But it's also a classic thing that everyone always says, is that art and business doesn't go hand in hand, yet it has done for years. But it's also the one thing that artists struggle the most with.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, what I do is only possible because of business. Like the reason that I approached this in the way I did was because I felt there was a viable opportunity financially to do this. Like I graduated in 2009 and it was a credit crunch, and I could either, I don't know, get a job as a recruitment consultant for 17 grand or try my hand at grime.
Yeah.
I thought I could make 17 grand doing grime. That was my benchmark.
It's a pretty good goal.
At the time, this was a stretch goal.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. It's like, I think, but I love those stories, because it's like, I think it's you don't give yourself another option, right? I think that the other option is something that you don't want to do. So why even allow that as an option?
Yeah, and then I guess there was a point where I was like, I don't think, the mix of the stuff that I got involved in, I was like, well, I don't think I could actually get a job that would pay me the same as my creative work. So now it flipped the other way around, where I was like, oh, I actually not have to, but it made sense to continue doing this because there was actually more viable upside in this. It's just so strange, because obviously most people's difficulty is making, I don't know, first pound or whatever, first £100 or first grand or something. But in my case, it flipped the other way around, where it would have been harder to go into like standard employment and earn the same as I was doing in music. Anyway, 1% problem.
No, it is, but I think also I don't know about you, but I still have that that thing in the back of my head that, like, what if this all goes to shit? Like, I was literally talking to my manager not so long ago, and I was like, I really want to get some like tattoos on my hands and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, but you know what? I genuinely had this conversation with him, like, considering I've been full-time in music for 10 years, probably even longer than that. I was like, yeah, but if this music thing goes to shit, I'm not getting a job with tattoos all over my hands. and it's I don't know what it is. Do you have the similar thing of like, what if this all goes to shit?
Yeah, I had it in 2020, and
yeah,
I think it was a good No, I wouldn't say it was a good wake up call. I mean, it was a pretty bad wake up call, if anything. But it was like a challenge in terms of knowing that I could start again
Yeah.
and like rebuild from scratch, and then maybe that confidence that's built through, I guess, through 2021, I guess, to now, is knowing that even if this went to zero, I could do not necessarily this again, but I could build something creatively from scratch, a different business or a different idea, or maybe work somewhere or part of another team. And whereas before, I definitely I probably felt the fear of if everything went wrong, then I would be screwed forever. Whereas now I don't. This is less my concern. I'm actually just more embracing of the change than I would have been in 2019. 2019, I
Yeah.
probably would have been shook. I was a very
Yeah.
my partner, like my business partner, Will Skilliam. He was like a rainy day guy. Save your money, make sure that we have like a certain buffer in the company and for the artists that we work with. And I was like, nah, man, it'll be fine. And then it just as well that he is financially like prudent. Yeah, otherwise
Yeah.
it would have been a bigger challenge than it was.
When it comes to managing an artist, and also being an artist, was there ever a point where you, in your career, where you were like, okay, I'm gonna stop being pushing my whole career as an artist and concentrate on helping others grow to be an artist? Or was it more of a case of I can do both at the same time, and kind of both be successful?
Yeah, I mean, the kind of artist project that I was doing through that time, Elijah and Skilliam, the limit of that thing was kind of, it was all built around building up those artists anyway. So
Yeah.
like back in the day, I'm not sure if this is as much the case now. The DJ's job was to like break artists and to develop artists, especially radio. Yeah, I was on Rinse. Like that was I felt like that was my like duty. And then I committed to working with Flavor D and DJ Q and Swindle and Champion, all these people. And I was like, okay, well, that is the job then. Like if, there's a certain point where obviously I'm playing MP3s on the radio, but that's it. Okay. But then the next level is actually helping them develop their careers. So I felt that was an extension of my DJing services or DJing role.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was a compromise to my artist vision. And there were times when it was like really busy and but not at detriment, because we're working together, or we'll share space, or we share resources instead of doing managing one project. There's a lot of the same processes times whatever free. So it's actually harder to, sometimes I feel like it's harder to manage one person because it's just, especially if they don't earn a lot of money. But if you're managing like two or three, the same processes times three, but it doesn't take three times the amount of time. You know what I mean?
No, and I think also when there's multiple artists or multiple people you're managing, it actually allows space to step away from a project, which I think is very key in a lot of situations in life, of just like being able to step away and like not concentrate on something all the time. I think that's when you can kind of get in your head and just fuck it up in the grand scheme of things.
And like I wasn't like the priority was them, because they were really going for it, and I think they had the ideas and music and albums and projects, and I thought like that was the right thing for the time. And now it's kind of like rebalanced to, this particular idea I'm doing right now, getting to a certain level where I didn't expect this either. So it's like, okay, cool, I've landed in this space now. But again, it's not taking thousands of hours. This is again another myth of the internet, right? Like how long does, I don't know, how much time does the work that I do actually take? Not that long. Yeah.
How long does it take?
I guess it's like a sum of all of the work that I've done before. So maybe it's like 15 years to write a square, right?
Of course.
In some ways. But then in other ways, it's like, let's say if I have a busy week on my own projects, it could still count as like maybe a day's work.
Yeah.
Which is not, there's still six more, it's not a lot. So,
yeah.
And I think It's probably obvious. Like I enjoy the work, so it's not like if I have more to do, it's like it's not that much of an issue. Yeah,
That's the beautiful thing of what we do, though, right?
exactly. The same way, if like a friend looked at your like a gig schedule, they'll be like, "Oh my god, you have to be in 20 places in like 6 weeks. How do you do it?"
Yeah.
But it's like, well, I enjoy it. It's fine.
I think that is the facts of this being an artist, right? Is that we're very lucky that we get paid to do what we do, and yeah, if you were getting paid a normal job to spend the amount of hours that you're doing, you'd probably be a millionaire because the amount of hours you put into to kind of just doing what you love.
100%. You just look at time very differently, right? It's not, we're not paid by the hour, innit? So we look at time very, very, very differently, you know? And
I think it's also the amount of free stuff you're willing to do. Like the amount of stuff that as an artist that you do for free that you don't even think is for free because you're just doing it.
For sure.
It's crazy.
I don't think it's free. Like, I just think it's just that we're just doing, right? Like we are free.
Yeah.
So we're not doing something for free. We just are free. So we're just doing stuff we enjoy.
We enjoy.
Yeah.
When you're sitting down about to write a title, what's the process?
Usually it is inspired by a conversation or something that's happened in and around the work that I've done, or I've read something and there's like a short or sharper way to get an idea down. So try and do it in like 10 words or less or something. And sometimes I'm trying to articulate a point that is just not obvious, you know. There's no point saying, "Oh, like just work hard." It's like, how helpful is that for people? And something that you could, even if you detach me from it, it still can stand. The idea needs to be able to stand on its own. It's not Elijah says this. It's just what it is, independent of me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So
makes total sense.
Sometimes a lot of the things I just write down in notes, like when I'm just out and about and just thinking about things, and then eventually, like maybe just when I feel super, I don't know, like maybe I just have a bit of time in the morning or something, I'll just write it down on the squares, and that's it. And then when I've collated quite enough on like the same kind of topic, then I'll post it. I used to just post them as I was doing them, but then now the carousel is such a good collection of ideas, so I just try and do like 10, make sure all of the 10 slides are used all at once.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm going through them now. How can I get paid to make whatever I like without having to fund or promote it while living in an expensive city until I die?
No one knows the answer to that. And that's what people are asking effectively, isn't it? When you think about like a creative career, right? It's like, if you just took that year by year, I feel like it's more straightforward to do, and it actions things in a way that people that have like 3 or 5 year or 10-year plans just can't fathom. Whereas I don't know that you can be a DJ until you like quote unquote retire. And what is retirement anyway? What does that even mean? Or I don't know that there's only one generation of retired DJs, isn't it? Like even the people that started in the 80s are still going now.
Yeah.
Unless they can't DJ anymore. But a lot of if they can and want to, they are. So I remember seeing like a bunch of people pass away like a few years ago, Frankie Knuckles and these kind of dons. I was like, oh, like what? There aren't really like 80-year-old DJs or 90-year-old DJs yet that were DJing in the 70s and 80s that have retired and have, you know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot.
Do you retire when you do something you love
though? I think with the way, so like the international DJ has developed into a thing, like it would be harder to do at old age. So if you like are in demand and can play gigs, it's not likely that you would do that at high tilt into your 70s and 80s. But maybe someone will, if you've got the
it's interesting though, isn't
vitality.
It's interesting though, because you look at like the likes of like Annie Nightingale, like rest in peace. Like she was, I don't know, I can't quite how old she was when she passed recently, but like she she could have retired probably 20 years before she did, and yet she's, because she loves it and still does it. And I think that's the thing, is like, look at Rick Rubin. Like, the guy's done pretty much everything in that you could ever imagine in this industry, right? Yet still going.
Yeah, I mean, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah, and this is the thing, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, and he's still finding. Obviously, he's finding new things to
To
spark his
do.
curiosity, right? So, you know, your art form or artistry just takes different shapes. The same, yeah. Again, like started out like on pirate radio and stuff, and obviously I don't do that now. But
No.
that, you know, I'm doing the squares and the stuff, and this time next year I won't be doing that either. So I think like having art in your life or creating, not right, art is like maybe just very one dimensional as well, but like just creating, having like
Yeah.
a bit of your, like a significant chunk of your life creating stuff rather than just being a consumer is like feels like a good, yeah, like a good life. Doesn't need to
How
necessarily be art.
how do you promote that though, in the sense of telling people to create and allowing people the time and the space to create in their life, when we live in such a world, a consumer world?
Yeah, it's hard. But the good thing about the apps now is, compared to say like television and radio, was like radio never had an upload button, television never had an
Yeah.
upload button, and the good thing about YouTube and Instagram is that it has an upload button, so it's telling you to share. So it's kind of like telling you to create. So I don't know. I feel like that's a good forcing function to make something instead of just consuming it. At least that's my interpretation of it. But that
I
it boils down to like education, man. Like if yeah, if we had like a culture here in the UK of just of building and creating, like I feel like our country would be very different, a very different mentality. But yeah, you know the difference between like America and the UK because you spend enough time there, and you can see
Yeah.
the how people think about living and creating and building, and even though we share a language, it's like worlds apart.
Yeah, I think though, from what I see, it depends where you're living and where you're from in America so
Mm-hmm.
much, because I think it generally comes down to wealth, and especially on an education level, is the first. It's the same in the UK. The first bit of funding that goes in schools is the creativity side of things, the
Mm-hmm.
art, the music. And I think it's the same here. It's like, I did a talk at my local school here in the UK, and like, you go into the music department and you're like, they're still stuck in like the early 2000s. Like, and you're just like, these kids have more technology on their phone to create than they do in the music block. And it's like, how are you allowing the younger generation to be given the ability to create, and to be able to told that this is, you're allowed to create, and be able, your create can be your job, or creating can be literally just part of your life that you enjoy doing. I think that is the issue, is that we're not told. Like, my music teacher told me that electronic music wasn't a genre, and I never have a career in music. That was my music teacher.
Yeah, I mean that's what they should have said because they just they didn't know any better. So like I'm not mad at those people anymore. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like there was no proof. The same, like, look, the generation that I came from, um, there was no evidence that the grime generation would have any success on any level because all they're doing is looking at what happened before. Is it likely that you is gonna, you know, be successful? It's like, no, you know.
I hear what you're saying, but I would also push back on that, because I think that's like, I know if you were in that same situation, you wouldn't be that. You
Of
wouldn't be
course,
saying the same.
because
And
yeah,
I think that's
yeah,
the
because
thing.
we've had the experience of building stuff. So maybe um like their mentality of for that time was like, okay, this is all right, I went to school. I graduated secondary school, finished in 2003. So wasn't there was I didn't even have internet at school really.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
to be doing the stuff that we're doing now, it's like the possibility space was so much smaller. So
yeah.
so I understand like their limitation. Now for them saying it, that sucks because there's enough examples of people that do what we do in the world and making a living out of it, and YouTubers and this thing and that. Like the possibility spaces are so much wider, whereas 20 years ago that wasn't really the case. And I'm not like saying that they were right for doing that, for pushing down our, ideas by any means. But today, people that are teaching, and like, I've got like my family are teachers that are our age.
Yeah,
I know they don't say that, and
yeah,
I know that they, even if they're obviously the resource stretched is crazy, but they also know that you can be a DJ or you can be a writer and you can be a thing, you know what I mean, or you can be an engineer
totally.
and an artist, and that's like kind of normal. And it's more likely that having a creative view of the world will make you a bit more flexible in the world of employment as well.
100%. 100%. How do you grow what you're doing now? What's the goal? Because I heard you earlier, you mentioned that you might not be doing this in a year's time.
Yeah,
Is there an out?
I think this is like it's good to know when to stop.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop this project in December, like finish this kind of squares and associated things with it. I think it's always going to be like a part of my like design signature or something I can always come back to. I'm going to put it in a book, like all the ideas and all of the ways I've used it outside of the app. And then, yeah, try some other stuff. Like, this is, by then, I would have been doing it for like 3.5 years. It's like a degree or
Yeah.
like a long album campaign, you know? And all that will happen if I don't stop, it will either get boring or miserable for me or other people, or like the app will change to a point where the thing would have to change for it to still work on there. So
Yeah.
instead of me waiting for that to happen, why don't I just quit while I'm ahead? And it kind of boxed the time that I've done a project for. I think like sometimes with like like eras of an artist or eras of music or something, it's nice to just draw a line underneath something and then move on to the next thing. And the challenge of building something new will be worth writing about in a different way or worth exploring. And look, and if I fail miserably, that will also be interesting and entertaining. Maybe not for me, but for someone else.
Yeah, I kind of really respect that because I've never looked at it like that of like ending a project. I think because for me is like I've always looked at myself as the project, and for me to stop something, no, that's a lie. I've stopped certain things, but I feel like right now, in from an outsider's point of view, it's working so well. Why stop? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I think there's
I'm
something
looking at it as like
beautiful about that.
it's working so well, so stop.
Yeah.
while people have fondness for it,
Yeah.
it's the same thing in it. If you're like producing certain style of music or record or something, and then you're like, okay, I've dug this hole deep enough now. Like I've got this thing, and then if you make more of it, it makes people not enjoy the old versions, you know.
Yeah.
And
It's tough though. It's tough. That's a tough side, but it's also part of being an artist, right?
for sure,
It's like that album you buy that album, you absolutely rinse it of your favorite artist. They bring out album 2 and it sounds nothing like it, and it takes you about a year to get into it, and then they do it again and again and again, and you're on album 3
yeah.
in December.
So hopefully, I mean, the truth is even with the squares, I think I will only know if they are good or useful or interesting or had a point to it if they are still being referenced a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years later. Like it's in the moment, it's on your timeline, it's whatever. It's just the thing of the day. But if they've really made an impact, then it'll be yeah, they'll continue to be referenced. And if you don't give them the space for that to happen, then you'll never really know.
It's a really beautiful outlook to have.
Thank you.
I don't think I'm there yet in my life, in my creative endeavors. But when you put a timeline to something, do you have a plan for next? Is there a something coming after, or is there something that you are like, okay, end point now? Let's go be creative and work out what the next thing is.
Yeah, I think finishing and then working out what the next thing is. I kind of have like more like a direction, but not like how to get there.
Yeah,
And I think that's just been I found that the most helpful, like the planning bit, because I spend so much time with other people planning their things and strategy and this thing and organizing a whole bunch of different people. When it comes to my own projects, I've been a lot more freeform. Like I'm not employing anyone, or there's no one relying on me going outside to do something. Like whereas it's very different when you're say like you're project managing and people's incomes rely on it, and you're paying PR or you're paying this person or you're paying like. Whereas with this thing, it's just me and the iPad, so there's a lot less pressure to to even. I could just stop now, to be honest. Like, I mean, I actually have commitments at the moment, but like I could. Yeah, I guess in December is when I could really stop because I don't have any further commitments beyond that. That's why I probably said that. But there aren't too many people that are relying on me delivering something, which is nice. It keeps it low stress.
It's kind of freeing, right?
Yeah, and maybe the next thing I could go either way. I could go even further, maybe like an offline project, something that's more like in my local community, or I could go like more internet. It just depends how I feel at that time or what idea comes to me, or even just opportunities. Like people hit me up all the time, like, and ask me if I want to work on things, and there will be a day when I get a call that I'm like, yes, let's do that. But that hasn't happened yet.
I'd recommend a therapist before an agent or a manager for one of your squares.
Yeah.
Have you done therapy?
Yep. And you know what?
Stamp.
And I'm not gonna speak about here. Like there's bits of my life that I just keep private because I share a lot. But the reason why I said that in the first place is because, like we were speaking about earlier, like monetizing the art and making a living from your art is a very big decision to make. Yeah. And then getting an agent and a manager is like effectively like employing two people. People don't really think of it in that way. So I'm like, go through the process and make sure this is something that you want to explore, and then things that maybe you haven't resolved, you won't be able to resolve them through making music and money and music and through being in a club at 4 a.m. Just resolve that outside of this situation. Otherwise it'd be very difficult to do that inside of a club, and while you're trying to earn money and pay your rent and support a family. This is very hard. And I know it was like tongue in cheek, but sometimes I hear people trying to solve all of their life problems through getting a manager or getting an agent or joining a label or whatever it's going to be. I'm like, yo, like there's these two things are independent. And
I think further going on from that question, then when is the right time to have an agent and a manager in an artist's career? You've been on both sides.
Yep. It just depends. And like the easiest answer I could give people is to get a manager when you cannot manage it yourself anymore. Like when it's too hard, like you don't even understand what's going on. There's too much coming at you. You got 40 emails coming in a day. You literally cannot manage it yourself. And that's not, you haven't learned how to manage it. It's like you just physically cannot do it. That would be one scenario. Then I guess like a common scenario that comes up is they meet someone that they can trust and can see it through, or like a professional that believes in them and has invested in them, maybe given them space, or has been part. Part of their journey in some ways, and they want to build it with them. Cool, but it's very hard to say like be making whatever you're making, and then be like going on manager dates. This is like it's hard to find a whatever partner. It's like even harder to find a manager. I think it's probably easier to find a partner than to find a manager.
We speak to your manager way more, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it goes back to what we were saying in the beginning, right? Briefly, is like business and art. That is the management relationship, and money, emotions, like everything. You have to find somebody that truly gets everything. And you have to also get them. Like this is a two-way relationship. It's a relationship. It's two-way. It's like my manager is massively part of my business. However, we're massively part in each other's personal lives, because there's literally no way to do it just on one of them. If you know what I mean, he couldn't have realm over my business if he's not part of my personal life. Like before he became my manager, like I literally made him fly to meet my family, because my family are a huge part of my life. And it took me a long time to get to that point of like knowing what I needed in a manager. But it is a bigger relationship than your partner, 100%.
That's a good litmus test. Like if they're not willing to meet your family, then laters.
Game off.
I mean? Yeah. And like, look, you see, like when we say like manager as well, it's like all of these things are not the same, like created equal or have the same skill set. So I'm sure me and your manager have completely different skill sets, different experiences, and can bring two different things to the table. Like I wouldn't be like maybe the right manager for you, or that manager wouldn't be the right manager for me, and so forth. So the diversity of that role in itself is so wide that when people say, "Oh, I'm looking for a manager," I'm like, what do you want them to like? Yeah, write the job description, and then what you feel like they should be paid for that, and then can you afford that kind of person? Because today, the reason why it's not I couldn't be a manager. I could be a manager, but I wouldn't do that again. Is because just where I'm at in my life at the moment, I wouldn't be willing to work with someone from zero to build it up from scratch. And I'm just honest about it. I'm like, yo, I literally cannot do that. Whereas the time that I started working with the artists I worked with, we were all at the same stage in our early 20s. I was down for that, Whereas like now I'm 36. I'm just like less, even if I believe in someone, I'm like, yo, let's just go for lunch and just keep it light. And if you need help, then I'm at the end of the phone if I just rate you. But I'm just not like as willing to go from zero with someone today.
I think I respect that, because I think there's also, the more you spend time in this industry, the more you learn. But again, it goes back to before these people have a manager, before these people have an agent, they have to learn themselves. Mm-hmm. I 100% had a manager way too early at the beginning of my career, 100%. And I learned a lot whilst having a manager, but realistically, I could have done it myself. And I think that's what I'm seeing in a lot of friends and a lot of people in the industry now. It's like, look, call me. I'll help you whenever you want. Like I'm working with multiple people on my label that I'm like, you have literally my whole team. My whole team will talk to you whenever you want. We're not interested in making money out of you. We're interested in you being successful. Be part of the crew, like give back to the crew, and the knowledge we give you and you learn from us, and the knowledge you learn from not us, give it to somebody else.
100%.
Like if you really need management, we will be able to see that you really need management, and we can kind of help you in that. But realistically, we're all in it together. Mm-hmm. If you win, I win, you win. That's what, for me, is what this industry is about. And I feel like it kind of got lost for a period of time, but I feel like it's slowly coming back.
Yeah. And I get like when artists say, oh, they can't do a particular thing, again, it comes back to that creativity bit. I'm like, yo, like you went through all this hassle and like learned logic and music and all these things, programming languages, and you can't work Excel of all things. Like this is like the easiest thing, like by
Yeah.
comparison, you know. And like
Yeah.
just, you know, the focus that I see like artists go through, like in terms of putting together records and vision and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, I understand why you don't want to spend time on admin and emails and all this kind of stuff, but then it's like, keep you understand the business that you're in better if you read your emails, or you understand the business that you're in if you build the relationships yourself. If you delegate relationships, then you can get to a point, even if you're successful and things, you know, take a turn, you won't even have them to build from. And again, we've probably seen examples of this where obviously if you people that have just come in, had a manager at the start, maybe got a lot of opportunities, made some sick records, but then when, you know, something's not clicking or whatever, the next thing isn't working, they don't even know who to speak to, who the promoters are,
Yeah.
because they were never given that access. And yeah, again, like in terms of like being a manager or like you know, being part of a management team, this is not it's not really easy to do, or say, okay, just say, oh, to your artist, I think you should do that yourself. I think you should go to that meeting. I think you should go and fly to that place and talk to that producer. I think you should take a course in bookkeeping. People are like, what?
Yeah.
Why is the producer doing a course in bookkeeping? It's like, so they understand what so they understand what they're reading, you know? All of these like
I
little
think it's
things.
so important. I think it's like, again, you're talking about the business, and I think that's what kind of can be forgotten about in this industry a little bit, is that we're in the music industry. It's a business, and it's like, if people are getting paid, people are earning a living, it's a business. And if you rely on everybody else around you to run your business for you, when everybody else around you goes, there's no business.
Nope.
And I think it's so important. There's certain things that I've learned over the years that, yeah, you learn to delegate over the years, but then sometimes bring it back in house to yourself, because it's just like, you know what, it's just not because it's easier, but it's like, you know, the attention of detail is you're gonna keep that attention of detail until you can find somebody that can be the same as you in that sense. Sometimes it's easier just to do it yourself.
Yeah. And just like maybe that what happens as well when, say, like if you're a DJ playing locally in bars and clubs and stuff, and then you get agent too early, like you don't even, again, you're not, they're like kind of intercepting your email effectively. It's like, well, you don't even know who's even asking the question anymore. And I see that quite a lot. Like, but this is so, it's so individual. Like everyone's journeys are so different that
Yeah.
there's no like kind of one size fits all.
Yeah, I totally agree. I want to kind of go through a couple more
Sure.
squares. We aren't creating things for most people.
Yeah, this seems so obvious to me. Like a lot of time I'm speaking with artists, and they say, "Oh, everyone is doing this, everyone is doing that, everyone's doing." I'm like, who is everyone? And we were never speaking to everyone. I know it's on Instagram, a platform that everyone is on, but we're not speaking to everyone, and we're not trying to reach everyone. So why do we even use that as a terminology for success? Like, and like, you know, what number would be good? It would that bar always changes. You know, if
Always.
always
That always changes. It's the hardest. It's the hardest thing to measure success, right?
Mm-hmm.
One record does 100,000. Your next one does 200,000. Your next one does 1,000,000. But then your next one does 100,000. Does that mean that that's not successful?
I think the record that gave you the 100,000 that got you to the one that did 1,000,000, then the next one did 100,000, got you introduced to some next producer or next artist that you would never been into or like met, or like an opportunity came up. Cool, that didn't get a lot of plays, but hey, it was a great experience. Then the next one that did, you know, 2,000,000 and got you some Radio 1 plays and built relationships over there. Cool. And then the next one did 50,000, but you made it like on a beach where we're on holiday just randomly, and it's your personal favorite that you're always going to play. These are all, that's how I'm measuring like the metrics, I guess. Like maybe what the experience of creating the thing was, and then maybe the opportunities that came from it rather than the numbers. The numbers are like not so, especially on a small scale, they're not so relevant.
How did you how did you get this mindset? What process was it for you to get to this mindset of where you're at? Because I think it's all good and well saying it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's easy to kind of preach this mindset, but actually doing it feels like you're actually doing. But what was that process to actually get there?
Well, it's because this has taken a long time, but I think there's just a
Yeah.
difference in the reality of what something than what it actually is. So like sometimes I will get the statements back for something. I'm not even watching the plays for something, and it's got some amount of plays, and you're like, oh, where'd that come from? Who knows? I don't know anyone in Poland listening to this record. I've had no interaction with it. It's just come back, the statistic, cool. So there was like a really like big divergence in the statistic and the money versus like what I actually felt and what I was experiencing. And when I guess people go and try to dial so hard to the statistics, so like the amount of followers or the amount of comments or the amount of things, is like, is that actually being reflected in your day to day? So like if I went and posted something and I got 10,000 comments, for example, I'll still walk out on the street and no one would know who I am, which is perfectly fine. But if I posted something today and it got 20 comments and a DM from someone I really respect and an opportunity that to work on something or build something that was really interesting, that would be like the win. And
Yeah.
it always has been. It's just not, again, quantifiable. It's not the Instagram stat that we're all throwing up. It's not like the thing that, it's not our gig listing. It's not our something that is going to be at the end of the books or the balance sheet or something. But it's what we're actually living, you know. And some of the time I'm like, well, okay, if the song got, we actually don't want like the plays. We want the outcome of the plays, right?
I love that.
Like, I mean, if your song got 10 million streams, right, and then no one's reacting to it in the club, it's like,
or you're not getting the gigs, or you're not selling the tickets, or you're not but I think this is the interesting thing about nowadays. That is actually happening.
Yeah.
You're having artists that have huge numbers on, let's say, for instance, Spotify, because that's the only platform that shows numbers, right, to the public. There's a lot of artists that are having huge numbers that just doesn't correlate into community.
Yeah.
And then that is also that realization of like, these numbers mean fuck all.
Pretty much. Like, I mean, it means something, but it just doesn't mean everything. And I think it's like, it's nice to like, this is, I'm not there yet either, right? But I want to try and feel the same about 100,000 plays as 10 million plays. That's like the goal. Like, cool, it's doing well, sick, like, appreciate it. And then the 100,000 one that were maybe not connecting for some other reason, but I still like the thing, good. But feeling just some like level of joy that is not like up and down with the statistic. The same with the following on social media. I was like, I don't care. Like if something gets higher amount of comments, it might be just for a random reason. You know, if I posted over the last 5 days, I would have just got less engagement because everyone's talking about Drake and Kendrick Lamar. If you post on, I could have posted something that banged, I don't know, for some reason that is just completely out of my control. But it's also like not me. It's not like me being better. Like I didn't become a better writer because more people liked it. But yeah, this is not like I'm here and I'm like some sort of fucking Zen master. Like, but that's what I'm working towards. You know?
Dude, you're it's close, man. I get it. And I think there's also sometimes I don't like saying it, but it's that saying of fake it till you make it. I think there's certain aspects that we all have to do in our lives where we say something over and over again until we actually believe it. And there's a process of that, of being able to tell ourselves something, and eventually it happens.
Yeah. Especially if it's just
And
more
also
healthy for you, innit? Like if it's more healthy for you,
yeah,
you just decide to be a healthy person, you go to the gym. It's like, well, you're not actually just healthier just by the thing. It's like, I'm like, okay, I'm internalizing, like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that until you, yeah, it's the same kind of thing.
yeah. I was having a conversation. I can't remember who it was actually the other day, but I was talking to somebody and they were talking about like their mindset of how they changed their mindset of like they tell every night they tell themselves tomorrow's going to be an amazing day. They wake up in the morning and they say today's going to be the best day ever.
Wow.
And I think there's something so powerful about that. And I think what I've seen, what I've got from following you over the time, some controversial things, some non-controversial things, some very thought-provoking things that have made me think of as who I am as an artist and who I am as a human being. And I think what you've done is triggered people, artists, whoever, consumers to actually stop and think. And I think the way I feel is that there's not enough people doing that. And I just kind of really want to like take my hat off to you and just be like, keep doing your thing, man, because it's fucking special. I really really enjoy it.
Thank you. And like, I maybe with socials in particular, again, it's like that thing. It can be more than just, you know, gigs listings and drops in clubs, and there's it all like so like multi-dimensional. And this is like one part of my brain or one part of my personality, maybe that I just never showed before. And you know, maybe in December, okay, I'll dial this bit down and then show a bit more of my other side when I'm ready to. And I think obviously if you're a frontline artist or producer or DJ or whatever, you're only showing, you know, 5% of your day, like it, or, you know, a really small capture of how you think. And showing that slight bit more, it opens up a lot of opportunities and possibilities in a way that might not be obvious to you. So maybe you get less engagement on the app, but then you get another kind of opportunity or idea based on, you know, you posting about farming or building a studio or, you know what I mean, or cooking or wherever it's going to be.
Yeah.
Because we're all just like we're all living in between this stuff, right? And when someone, you know, comes across something interesting or figures something out that could maybe help other people, just like sharing that has been, yeah, it comes back 10 times, man. It's good.
I totally agree. And I think it's also this, I think it's very easy in this world. I've had people say it to me where like, you can only do one thing. And it's so untrue.
Mm-hmm.
We all do so many things. And I think like a classic example on the artist front is like, look at Action Bronson. And I've always kind of really looked up at like what he does, right? Is like, he does fucking everything.
Yep.
He's like food dude, starting restaurants, food blog, rapper,
Wrestler,
gym dude now.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's like so many aspects of his life. And I think each part of those lives, different people connect in.
Mm-hmm. He's painting as well, right? I saw his paintings.
I know, yeah, it's mad.
Yeah.
And olive oil, like he's an olive oil dude. And you're just like, I kind of really want to, truly feel like I try and do that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I could be better at doing that. But I think for me is like, if you allow people to understand who you are as a human being, and I think the more human being you are, the more people will connect with you.
Yeah, 100%. And like some of this, I guess the most helpful thing for this project has been for me, you know, like me, like close the app, make the thing is for me. You know, I'm writing some of these things to myself. It's not advice for other people. It's like, okay, I need to, you know, shut the fuck up and go and get the stuff done too. You know, I need to, you know, push myself to like know that failure of certain things is cool. I need to try out other stuff. Even not quitting the project, but completing the project is another creative challenge. And like, oh, how do you end it? Like, how do you bring it to a close? How do you feel satisfied with that? How do you move on to the next thing? Like all of these questions, and like using Action Bronson or Snoop Dogg or Yeah, Rick Rubin, like you said earlier on, like all these like really interesting ways of expanding what we can do with this thing, especially DJ culture. Like DJ culture generally has been make record, DJ, raves and festivals, and that's it.
Yeah.
And every time I see people branch out, there's usually like some like, you know, loud minority be like, oh, why are you doing this? Why are you making fashion? Why are you doing sunglasses? Why are you doing this, that, another thing? I'm like, no, we need more people to branch out and to do interesting stuff. And when I see people, making hardware, I see someone the other day like building a sound system. Okay, like that's quite close to music. People making their own alcohol brands, making I don't know, just like infinite ideas that are just like people's genuine interest. That just feels, I don't know, it's just inspiring. Like Instagram for me has mainly been that, like seeing what people are doing and going, okay, it's inspiring, and I should actually post more other people's stuff that I think is good. I'll make an effort to that.
Maybe that's the next one.
Yeah, or I want to make sure I don't commit way too much time on the internet. You know, I've spent a long time on the internet, but I'll find a balance between the online and offline, or even, you know, a lot of things that we do we don't share anyway, right? Because
100%,
like we're just normal people just doing whatever we're doing, and I want to try and maintain that and maintain that balance.
Love that. I think that's a perfect way to end. Thanks for coming on. How can people get involved with the projects that you're doing?
Thank you. So my Instagram handle is just ELI and then a 1 instead of a J and then AH. So ELI 1AH. And just scroll through it once or twice and then close the app. Make the thing.
Make it. Ending on the brand. I love that. I love that. Dude, thank you so much.
Good,
keep in touch, dude. I really appreciate it. And hopefully see you soon.
All right, man. Much love.
Peace. And that's a wrap. Big love to everybody for coming on and listening. Big love to Elijah. I hope you enjoyed that. Please hit subscribe. Please share it. Please send it to your friends. Give us a comment. Do all the things you need to do just to keep this podcast going. Big love. Till next time.